This show may contain language and subject matters that are not suitable for a younger audience. Viewer discretion is advised. Viewer discretion? This is a podcast. Son of a bitch! Hello and welcome to Weird Careers. I'm your host, E.T. All over the globe, yes, it's round, people get up and go to work. But there are some fun and unusual jobs out there, and I'm here to explore them. Everything from comic book letterers to voice actors and everything in between. So please join me on my journey around the world as I dive deep into these jobs. Please follow me on the socials at Weird Careers Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and the show itself on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and so much more. If you think you have a weird or interesting job, stay tuned to the end of the show and find out how to get a hold of us. On today's episode, we have Robyn, who is a succulent grower. Robyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. Before we get into everything, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of work?
Okay. I don't really know myself, to be honest. Just go where the wind takes me. Play video games, hunt, fish. Small town girl. Boring. But I'm loved. And that's awesome. So that's who I am.
I love that. That's the most genuine answer I think I've ever heard on this show, and I absolutely love that.
Well, honesty is the best policy. So I'm just going to say what I feel today.
100%. I love that. I fucking love that. Let's get into it. So tell us, what is it you do for a living?
I grow succulents on the side, actually, but in real life, I'm actually a greenhouse grower, a junior greenhouse grower.
That's awesome. Are the two connected, or are they two completely separate entities?
Two completely separate entities. Actually, starting in my career, I got into it through my high school as a co-op, and it felt like the only thing I was good at. So, and then later on, I got into succulents from a job I used to work at in Beamsville, actually, an herb greenhouse, and they did a succulent program, and here and there, a little leaf would fall on the floor. And when I asked my boss if I could take one home and try growing it, I found out it was so easy. Here I am now.
So in your day job, you are a greenhouse grower. But what we want to really look at is the art of succulent growing. So tell us a little bit about how your setup at home looks like.
I have a teeny tiny little greenhouse. I believe it is an 8x6. It's not very large, pretty much the size of a garden shed, a small one. Probably the cheapest garden shed you could buy that you could house a riding lawnmower in at least. And
oh, geez.
It's what started for me as cuttings. I ended up meeting my now boyfriend this is his greenhouse, actually. And he had succulents and horthias in there when we met. And I kind of took it over. And now we grow actually 148 species currently of different cacti and succulents.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, where do you said you house so many different varieties. How do you source them?
Oh, literally, I'm a girl. I like to shop. So I'm hitting up all those local garden centers and I'm finding something I don't have. And sometimes I don't care how much it costs.
So you're going to all of these places to, get essentially your seedlings, your clones, so to say. What separates you from your competition?
Oh, I don't know. It definitely is a niche, but I wouldn't say I'm completely unique. I think one thing that would separate me from my competition is just my style and how I make my planters, how I grow my plants. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way to make succulents do funky things, like bonsaiing certain varieties to literally become little trees. Or
cool.
Yeah, like I'm just in it for the game sometimes. Like that's how it started. Sometimes I just go, oh, this succulent mother needs a haircut. That's how the propagation starts, and then I end up with like 50 of one variety, and I gotta move it, I gotta sell it, and then now actually I'm taking orders.
So you were just talking about like haircuts and cloning and whatnot.
Mhm.
I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say there's probably a lot of listeners out there who have no idea what you're talking about. So
Oh yeah.
explain the process of essentially just that of propagating and cultivating succulents.
Oh, it's a slow process. I'm going to be honest. Patience is key when it comes to succulents. You can't be overbearing. You literally got to take it slow. Like what happens with 90% of people is what they tell me is either they're moving their succulents around too much or they're overwatering them or literally too scared to water them because they think succulents require no water at all. But really, if someone would want to, take a crack at a succulent, try propagating it themselves, I always recommend like weeks in between each step. And I know it seems long and gruesome, boring process, but that's literally the advice I can give is just patience.
So you were saying about giving these succulents haircuts. What does that mean?
Oh, so when a plant gets too big, like a bush or a shrub or any other kind of plant, like say something you'd have in your garden, you just cut that thing back. Cut it back short. You can do it to the wood. I cut my succulents to near death sometimes, as my boyfriend will point out, but they always come back. I've lost a few doing that, but I always test the limits on how far I can stress a succulent.
Hey, you never know until you actually go in and try, right?
That's the whole game, trial by error. Um, that's why I told people don't feel bad. you, you just find the plants that work for you essentially, and 148 of them work for me.
That's a lot, 148. So how did you get from having just a couple succulents to the stock that you have now?
Oh boy, I'd say it was when my boyfriend and I started a job out in Brampton at a very esteemed nursery, Sheridan Nurseries actually, and they did an agave program. There was a trial, and that's actually how I got 90% of my agave collection was because they were going to throw it out after they weren't going to sell it, and I was like, oh no, so I took one of each. And I brought them home, and I still have them to this day. And I'm so thankful. My boss let me take them. He said you could have them. They're going in the trash. There's no use for them as long as you're not selling them. I'm like, no, 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 no. I just got my first puff off of one like literally a month ago. I was so impressed.
That's awesome. Wow.
And then it was like, wow, okay, I've never seen so many different types of something from one species. And then it just kind of was like, I started crawling through the different species essentially of succulents.
You were saying earlier that succulents are very niche. They're a niche product. It's a niche community. It's not something that the average person is going to actively go out and purchase. So how is it that you go about and market yourself, and what does your demographic look like?
Oh my gosh, I'm so terrible at marketing. I'm going to be honest. A lot of it is word of mouth, and I have a big mouth, so if you get me on the topic of plants, I'm not going to shut up about it. And I do have a really good support system. Like a lot of, but I'm a cool chick. I'm gonna have an ego about it a little bit, and I have captivated few people with my succulent charm, and I'm actually going to be doing my second workshop on Saturday at Blackburn Beer Company in Niagara Falls, and it's for a Mother's Day event, and I'm hoping to captivate more people. My first ever workshop was 31 people, and that was crazy. So it's like likes on Facebook, the more when you think about you take a picture and you get 31 likes on it of something, imagine having 31 people just looking at you in person. That's pretty crazy to
Wow.
me. Doesn't seem like a
Yeah,
lot.
that's when you put it into perspective like that. Absolutely. I never thought of it that way.
It was a lot for
That's a good way to
me.
look at it.
Yeah.
That's a lot for anybody. That's a full classroom of people.
Yeah, and I actually, believe it or not, the host for my first workshop, Ridgeway Lavender, she was my math teacher when I was in grade 9. And she told me that. She said, yeah, honestly, like teaching a class like that ain't for the weak. Now imagine doing it like every day until summer. And I'm like, yeah, that sucks.
Ugh. Ooh.
But I love doing it, to be honest.
That's awesome. I love that.
Mhm.
Speaking of, so when you said you were doing workshops,
Yes.
what, what would a succulent workshop look like?
Oh, like a DIY build your own, like your Pinterest
Oh,
wildest dreams, essentially. I'm just making it happen.
I love that. And how did you come up with that idea?
I'm scrolling on Pinterest.
I love that. As as one does, you get so many ideas online and then you make it a reality.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's the people that are willing to share their creativity. They're helping others be creative as well. And that's what I want to do by doing these workshops is help people become more creative. And like I don't just do the workshops too. Like you can buy succulent kits where I build like the bowls that you need, you provide the plants and the dirt and the decor, and you can do it at home. You don't need me.
I love that. I love the passion to educate, as well as your passion to grow. I think that is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Of course. Before we get into the succulents themselves, we're going to take a quick moment for you to hit pause, take a pee break, make a coffee, or do whatever it is that you need to do. So don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Hey there, my name is Robyn, and I'm from the Succulent Archive. You're listening to Weird Careers with Eric.
And welcome back to Weird Careers. We are joined by Robyn, who is a succulent grower out of Port Colborne, Ontario. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we're going to dive into now a little bit more about the processes and the succulents themselves. So we're going to start out with what your days look like. What does being in the greenhouse look like? That can be from just daily care to, let's say, a propagation day. What do those days look like?
Actually, believe it or not, I don't even get into my greenhouse until like almost 5 o'clock
Oh,
in the
wow.
afternoon, and like in the PM. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Um. Yeah, and I do most of my watering like in the greenhouse, on a set temperature and everything. So I can keep it pretty arid in the greenhouse, so I can keep them dry, water them every day, force them to grow. Um, But yeah, I do that at night. Typically, succulents photosynthesize at night, actually. So they do most of their water retaining. And that way they have a
Oh.
reserve throughout the day when it's typically drier and there's no water for them.
Oh, that's fascinating. And would that be the same for all succulents or just a certain amount of species?
A certain amount of species. I have noticed certain succulent species actually do tend to take more water than others. I think what's important when caring for any succulent is that you really let them dry out in between waterings. If you notice your succulent is too wet for too long, don't water it. But if you notice your succulent is still too wet for too long and starting to look sick, then you need to dry that soil out. And typically that is a soil change or putting it next to a window that's open in the summertime so it airs out the soil faster and dries it.
Nice. So how long would you say you're in the greenhouse on a typical day?
Oh boy, after I'm done working in the summertime, anywhere between the 12 to 13-hour shift, I spend about probably another 3 to 4 more hours in the greenhouse, my own
Oh,
greenhouse at
wow.
the end of the day.
So you do another 3 to 4 hours in your greenhouse after 12 to 13 hours for your day job. What are
Yeah.
you doing for those 3 to 4 hours?
Oh, it can be anywhere between cleaning, making random planters, propagating more succulents, like cloning them,
Mm-hmm.
eep. Removing a lot of dead foliage. So when it's wintertime, typically, now that we're getting into spring and summer, I don't typically touch the succulents at all in the greenhouse. So they get kind of gnarly. And springtime is like the perfect time for me to like clean them up,
Mm-hmm.
get them nice, make my own personal ones, and
Mm-hmm.
then they'll grow better. So right now it's basically just getting ready for summer, making my plants happy again. watering them, fertilizing them. Got to do it more now.
Busy, busy, busy. It's the never. I'm guessing it's just a constant daily. You're always checking in on things. You're always making sure things are going.
Well, yeah. And you know what? The greenhouse has served like an amazing purpose. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. Um, it's like the perfect place to smoke a joint. It is
Oh,
a little
absolutely.
piece of heaven, and it's scenic, and we got all these crazy looking plants to look at when we're unwinding from the day. And I think, yeah, we just kind of just get sucked into the whole like, oh, we're cleaning now, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're stowing out of our trees, we're taking care of something, we're busy, and it's something that my boyfriend and I can do together,
I love
and we
that.
love it, and it keeps us close.
That's great. I love that you that it's not just for work, but it's also just to kind of keep yourself grounded. I love that.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, like, I work for a production greenhouse, but at the end of the day, I get into like my boyfriend and I's greenhouse. That's our kingdom. That's our castle, and we run it, and we do it really well together. We actually don't fight. Sometimes we have disagreements, but he's also a greenhouse grower too, and he's been doing it a lot longer than me. And I do trust his knowledge, to be honest. Although succulents, I think I have more of a. I just took the time to study them more than he has.
So when we joined the Zoom meeting before we actually got into recording, you were telling me how much business was booming and the orders that you were getting. You were getting so many. What does that business side look like? Like, what is like bulk orders? Is it individual orders? How do you manage and orchestrate all of that? And what does it look like?
It's officially Looney Tunes. I'm not going to lie. I'm very chaotic. There's a lot of things I didn't take into consideration when it came time to actually making serious money off of these things. Like I've averaged, I think a good like one workshop was 1,085 in 2 days, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
eventually this is gonna like start to actually see a profit pretty soon. So like now I actually have to keep track of like invoices and what I'm spending on product, and where to source things better. And now I really actually have to like before it was just $10 here, $6 here, $20 here, turned into
Mhm.
$30 here, $40 here, $80 here, to a crap load of people going, hey, I want to do this. And then having actually some really awesome people like Ridgeway Lavender. I'm so grateful to know them, who stuck their neck out for me and gave me a shot at hosting a workshop at their farm. And now I've got Blackburn Beer Brewing Company, who's taken me on for a workshop too. And like so far too, I got two weddings in September I'm doing handouts for, and a baby
Nice.
shower this June, as well as a kid's birthday party. And it's literally it's exploding. So
That
keeping
is
track of it
so
all.
awesome.
And now having to keep up with the volume of plants, actually, like I have it right now, but I realize like after all of these events, I'm going to be bone dry. I'm going to have no inventory. So now I'm going to be starting to look into
Oh.
a bigger greenhouse.
I was just gonna ask, with this booming business, will you have to increase your storage capacity?
Oh, officially, yes.
I can imagine if you went from like 30 orders to you've got how many things going on, like big numbers. That's like awesome. That's I love watching small businesses grow. That's where it's at.
Well, yeah, like $10 here is like wintertime. I do 5 2-inch little plants for $10, and those usually fly because nobody's really selling that in the wintertime in most
Mm,
conventional greenhouses. And
mhm.
it's because it's a niche of mine. I'm doing it all the time. But like, yeah, some of these orders now are becoming like 60 to 70 little pots, or,
Wow.
30 pots here. Yeah. And it's just, and now it's for me, I'm just like, okay, the game is on. I got to start finding newer varieties, bigger varieties, things I can take pups from, things that grow fast, things that are cool, things that people want. And it's going to be a big crazy vicious circle, this whole business thing, because it's supply and demand. And another thing is it's always cents on the dollar too. So there's
Mm.
so much that goes into running a business like this. And oh yeah, it slapped me like crazy. Just this month, May itself is when I got slammed with all these orders, literally.
Wow.
Like the first, and we're still in the first week.
That's good. That's fantastic. The money coming in, you're getting your name out there. That's great. That's fantastic.
Sometimes I wish for the crash.
You know what they say, no rest for the wicked, right?
Yeah, whoever said owning your own business gives you free time is a fucking liar. I'm gonna be honest.
You're preaching to the choir, sister.
Yeah.
To get where you are, other than your current like daytime job, do you have any like schooling or experience that's gotten you to where you are?
I'd like to give a shout out to Port Colborne's own Lakeshore Catholic, who honestly couldn't deal with me, so they gave me a co-op, and it was at the Mill Greenhouse in Gasline, and I fell in love with it. I'm gonna be honest, I was such a punk teenager. I'd rather at the time, being young, I didn't want to have a job, but I would have loved to like hang out with my friends, smoke weed. So I did it for the longest I could for the credit, I think, and then I bailed. But then when it came time to looking for a job again, and that was my only experience, is when I got the job at actually I think it was a rose farm.
Nice.
The second ever. Oh my gosh, it sucked. I'm gonna be honest. Like I was cut up all the time, and that was the job, was dethorning these cut roses. It was terrible. And it was hot too because you're doing it outside.
That sounds monotonous.
Yeah, it was. And minimum wage back then, when I was 17 in 2015, I think we were still at like 14 an hour. It's horrible. That experience though helped me.
Absolutely. But would you say people need to get some kind of schooling, or is there kind of schooling out there to get into this, or is it just take a hobby and making it bigger?
I'm not going to shit on education too much because it doesn't hurt. Most horticulture, agriculture programs are a year or two. Whereas, like, I've been in this 10 years now. I never quit. I never stopped. Like, I strayed away to KFC once, and that was it. And then I went right back to the greenhouse. I was like, never again. I've seen the real world. I'm done. But some of these new greenhouse grower graduates from college or university, wherever they go, I feel like sometimes they don't understand, like, farm is hard work. And it's not just holding the clipboard, holding a watering wand. You're doing a lot. You're doing a lot of stuff, and you're responsible for a lot too. And it doesn't hurt to have the education, but I learned straight from, literally, like, I'm going to be honest, Mexicans taught me how to work hard and how to actually do this kind of job, and have a better knowledge on plants, just harvesting them for orders, knowing what's beautiful, what's shippable, what's a quality plant, what isn't a quality plant. A lot of the time the growers don't really see that. They just kind of see some of them see the chemistry aspect of it, like the integrative pest management, which is just like bug control, just doing beneficial bugs that help instead of using chemical sprays.
Bug control. That's something that I didn't even think about adding as a layer to stuff that you do. How do you, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My apologies, but what is
no problem.
Tell me about that. Like, how does that work?
Well, in some greenhouse cases, you can use beneficial bugs like parasitic wasps to eradicate certain species of bug, like thrip, mealybug, or aphids. I would say aphids and thrip more than mealybug. And it does cut down on an environmental impact on what you'd be using, like chemical sprays for. Some sprays can be organic, but a lot of the time pests build a resistance to certain organic sprays, and then they don't work. And then that's when you have to use more of a harsher chemical to eradicate the population.
That's interesting.
So it's better to always use bugs. Like the place I work at, actually, solely pretty much, we spray, I think, maybe twice a week, but for the most part, we use beneficial bugs.
That's incredible. I used to work at a cannabis grow facility out in Strathroy, Ontario, and they did the same. They did the same thing. Their IPM team
Oh, nice.
was using other bugs. There wasn't really a lot of other chemicals because, believe it or not, the cannabis farms actually have to adhere to health and safety, like food grade quality and standards. So they can't actually use
GAP.
harmful chemicals.
So that is GAP.
What is
Yes.
GAP?
So a lot of pot greenhouses around here. GAP. Ah, gosh, I always forget what the acronym means. But I worked at a greenhouse that was GAP certified, and oh, believe me, it was a pain in the butt. You can't have skids, like you have to have skids a foot away from the wall. You can't have cobwebs on the walls. You know, your garbages need to be emptied every week. The floors need to be swept. There can't be dust on plants. You can't wear nail polish. You can't have piercings. You can't wear jewelry. Like it's a food grade greenhouse. And the place I worked at did herbs and tabletop tomato planters, and it was organic. So there was a lot of strict guidelines we had to go by. And a lot of the times, we'd slip, but then we would get an audit that would come in, and we had to make sure our shit was tight, and we couldn't lose the certification, because then we couldn't ship or deem ourselves an organic facility.
That's incredible. Like it's little things that you don't even think about would need food grade standards put in place. But when you think about it, like when it comes to herbs and spices, do you really want things that have pesticides? Do you want to put that into your cooking? Same with cannabis. If do you really want to combust a chemical?
I know in a lot of like homegrown processes of growing your own weed, we will use things like flush, and like honestly, just do it the natural way. I know it takes longer.
Amen. That's what I do when I'm growing as well. Is I do everything natural. My fertilizer is coffee grounds, and water and a little bit of acidic lime.
Okay.
So I have a few little tips and tricks. And speaking about tips and tricks, people who want to get into this industry, do you have any tips or advice for people who are wanting to get into it?
My number one advice when it comes to wanting to get into farm work and plants, being closer to plants and wanting to actually learn more about plants is you better love the heat. You better love long hours. And sometimes it's just being a lover of the game. And yeah, you're going to hate playing it, but you love it and you do it. And some people say, like, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting change. Why am I still hopping greenhouse to greenhouse? It's miserable weather, it's hot, and you're working really hard, and you're working with people a lot of people who don't speak English, and you feel kind of lost, but you adapt over time. Like I'm becoming almost fluent in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good now after 10 years working with Mexicans. I learned a little patois from some Jamaicans out at Sheridan, and
I love that. That's so cool.
When you stick in it long enough, you learn so much, but you have to be willing. And it's like growing succulents. You got to be patient in this kind of industry, because it's not for everybody.
So we've talked about a lot of the pros about this industry. Could you tell us some of the cons?
But the hours they can be long. You can get lucky and find a greenhouse that has set hours or is part-time or seasonal. Or you could be like me, who gets full-time every time, all year, never gets a break.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, it's not bad. It just expands my knowledge at this point. I look at my resume like the Bible of where I've been in my life with these greenhouses, and I've worked at over 10 greenhouses in the Niagara region. Yeah,
that's a lot
just
of
different
experience.
places.
That's a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, different places, different operations, and not like I was going to get at, like, not every greenhouse is the same. You luck out at some places, and they're really kind to you, and they don't work you to the bone. I'm very fortunate at my new job, actually. They're really good with that. Um, yeah, the cons also would be you don't get stat pay and you don't get overtime.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Isn't that why is
it's
that?
farm law, actually, and it's been practiced for a really long time. Don't know why. Google it. I tell everybody all the time because they go, that's not legal. And I'm like, well, look it up. It is. And a lot of the time, you don't get most holidays like Mother's Day, Easter, you got to work.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So we're coming to the end of our segment today, and we get to a question that we like to ask all of our guests. And so let's take a trip back
Okay.
in time. Think about yourself, 7 years old, 8 years old, when people are starting to ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up? Well, I'm going to ask you that again today. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my God. Believe it or not, I love my mom. And you know what? It's crazy because Mother's Day is coming up, and I'd love to give this answer. When I was when I was little, I idolized my mom, and she works at Welland Hospital, and she works in the pathology lab. And I just, growing up, I always thought she was like a nurse or a doctor. I was just little. I didn't understand what she did, but she runs a very important lab as a secretary, but she makes sure everybody gets their paperwork. And I always thought I was going to see myself working in the hospital with her, like her mom did. Like my grandmother, her mother was working at Welland Hospital as well when my mom was young and got the job there too. And I just thought I'd see myself as like the third gen being working at Welland Hospital with my mom and grandma. But you know what? I was a punk ass teenager, and my high school was just trying to make me pass school. They gave me a co-op in horticulture, and here I am today.
Wow.
So it didn't really work out.
I wouldn't say that actually. You're still helping people. You're still helping, not people, you're still helping living things, except it's just in plant form.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? I have done a few deliveries to our St. Catherine's General. Succulents are a pollen-free plant too, so it's one of the few floral items that some hospitals will let you bring in that don't disturb other patients. And yeah, it's nice to make people smile and help people.
Love that. Well, Robyn, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. It's been an absolute delight having you on.
No, thank you so much for having me, Eric. It was a pleasure. I loved the questions. The atmosphere was great. And overall, I had really enjoyed talking about what I do.
Hey, do you think that you've got a cool or interesting job? Maybe you do. Your 9 to 5 could be a lot more interesting than you think it could be. Or maybe your neighbors, or your cousins, or your best friends, or your weed dealers. Okay, maybe not that last one. But if you think you've got a cool or interesting job, shoot us an email at weirdcareerspodcast@gmail.com. Like what you heard? Make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us. It really helps us to get seen. Thanks for listening, and until next time, I'm E.T. Cheers.